All right. It is just a little after 7 o'clock here Eastern Standard Time, which means it's time for another episode of Unapologetic with Chet and Duffy right here on Fans Only Sports Network. I am your host, Chet, and right here to my right is my wonderful counterpart, Duffy. Duffy, you just wolfed down that McChicken. How'd that thing taste, baby?
I actually got one more bite left of my second one. They put cheese on it by accident.
Oh, yeah? Well, I hope it was a good one.
First one I've ever had with cheese. Wasn't too bad. I like it.
Yeah, but how's the rest of your week been, buddy?
We're not sponsored by McDonald's, by the way.
Unfortunately, we don't have that sponsorship. That'd be cool if we could run some ads for them and get a little bit of that cash money. But, we work with what we got. So once again, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start right out of the gate. Obviously, last week we talked about our thoughts on the Super Bowl. The season now is done. The 2021 season is over. The Los Angeles Rams are your champions of the NFL. And now we move into the dark part of the season. This is the offseason. It is upon us officially, and we're going to waste no time in talking about what we think are some major offseason moves that could be coming and where they might end up. But to start right out of the gate, we're going to do what we usually do and check in on those New England Patriots that we love so dearly. So the New England Patriots, they are looking to make some big splashes in free agency this year. However, they also need to make improvements on certain sides of the ball and possibly prevent people from leaving the team. So, Duffy, what are your thoughts really on the Patriots and some of their potential moves?
I mean, the Patriots got a good amount of free agents. They have 21 players set to hit free agency, some of which being Trent Brown, Dante Hightower, and, who we were talking about before the show, and J.C. Jackson, probably their most pivotal free agent that they have that they want to re-sign. So there's a lot of holes potentially for the Patriots coming for the 2022 season. A lot of roster movements on its way in New England. And when you look back at last offseason with the Patriots spending a record number of money in free agency, locked up a lot of guys for a few years. They still have a lot of those core pieces on offense and on defense too. And the guys they signed, whether it be Johnny Smith, Hunter Henry, Matt Judon, etc. Mm-hmm. But, still 21 players set to be free agents this offseason. New league month going to start in probably about 2 weeks or so, or new league years, I should say. So there's going to be a lot of moves coming. And the Pats can't keep all these guys. Definitely in a different cap scenario than in recent years where, coming off an offseason where they did splash out in free agency. Probably won't do the same this season. But do you want to keep some of those really pivotal core pieces on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, and you definitely want to. J.C. Jackson, without a doubt, one of the top 3 cornerbacks in the NFL so far throughout the time he's been here. And the other day, he said some very interesting statements that were very concerning because he had to mention the fact that he feels like the Patriots don't really need him. And to hear that as a Patriots fan is like, say that again? I'm sorry, I don't think I heard you correctly. You look at the stats from this season, 8 interceptions and 1 taken back to the house. And it's just really concerning to see a guy who goes out on the field and makes tons of great plays left and right feel like he's not welcome in the team with the team that drafted him from the start. So as a Patriots fan, this is the number one guy you want to keep because defense is key right now. Defense is what's kept this Patriots team in a competitive state. And I think the most competitive piece to doing that is securing J.C. Jackson.
Yeah, and when you get J.C. Jackson, his impact on the field, like you said, 8 interceptions, a lot of which were against bad quarterbacks. So I will say that for anyone who says he's overrated, there is that to that. But Mr. INT, he's just a ball hawk. He knows where the ball is every time. I think he had 9 picks last year too. He's had 24 or something in the last 3 years, like an absurd amount of interceptions. Mm-hmm. So, J.C. Jackson's the type of guy you want to keep. And for an undrafted guy, as J.C. was early in his career, coming into New England, 2018, being one of those, raw undrafted talents that Belichick finds, as he always does. And, it's another prime example of a player that can go into this Patriots system and be great on defense. So it kind of makes me think the Patriots aren't going to want to re-sign him because we've seen that time and time again with these type of players. For example, Stephon Gilmore, we saw literally this past season where he got traded midway through the year, a year and a half shy of winning the Defensive Player of the Year. So Belichick's not going to want to pay defensive back, a lot of money. And J.C. Jackson's going to want a lot of money, being the league interception leader in the last 3 seasons, or not each of the last 3 seasons, but total. He's been
at least top 5. Yeah,
at least, yeah. So it hurts me to say, but I don't think J.C. Jackson's coming back to New England, and just because we've seen the same story from Belichick time and time again, where he can replace these defensive players like it's nothing. It's just kind of this whole displacement thing in New England where, someone leaves and someone else steps up. Even on offense, Wes Welker leaving in 2013, and right out of the gate, Julian Edelman has the same productivity, not the same, but very close to at least.
Yeah. So
I think Belichick trusts his methods of coaching, and it's gonna be different this year without Josh McDaniels or any of that, or a lot of the staff. But defensively, I know Belichick runs that, and when it comes to J.C. Jackson and the other corners on this team, J.C. Jackson is clearly the best cornerback on this team. Yeah. So I think the Patriots should re-sign him if they want to, have an elite pass defense in 2022. But at the end of the day, if they don't re-sign him, I'm not even that worried about the Patriots' productivity on defense next season, because we've seen it over and over again.
Yeah, and it's tough to see right now because you kind of look at what the Patriots have done in these last few seasons. You talk about last year and the year before, you have Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson both shadowing some of the top receivers. You just know when they're out on the field, the coverage is there, and you don't have to worry about it. But then you fast forward to this year, Stephon Gilmore is traded. He didn't play most of the year due to that injury and that surgery from last year. And he's still a pretty top-tier talent. He will be a free agent this year if he doesn't decide to re-sign with the Carolina Panthers, which I would think he wouldn't want to, but you never know. For J.C. Jackson, obviously, it's tough to see him because of his ball hawking ability. But as you said, Duffy, you look in the past like at a player like Darrelle Revis, comes to the team on a 1-year deal, wins a Super Bowl, and the Patriots decide to not pay him, which was a very big kind of controversy at the time. You could even see it again. Aqib Talib, a few years before that, ended up leaving the team and signing with the Denver Broncos and winning a Super Bowl with them. Yeah. So Belichick, he has a system where he takes some of these top-tier talents, makes them noticed, and then they get moved on because he doesn't want to pay them. That's the thing. He can really build
and some other teams are going to overpay them.
Yeah, and you can see that Bill Belichick is just perfect in terms of finding a cornerback or some defensive player and building them into that figure he wants them to be defensively, and they play the role beautifully. It's basically you're asking Belichick to compose. He's the composer, and these players are his instruments. That's the way it is, and the system works. I hate to say it, but I mean, at the end of the day, you do have to trust the guy a bit. Sure, I mean, all good things come to an end, and maybe this is one of those things where it may not pan out well for the Patriots down the road. But, I mean, if this is the way things are, I mean, we can't really stop it. It's tough to see if J.C. Jackson walks, but it's just the writing on the wall of what Belichick's go-to gut feeling is when it comes to these players and what he's willing to give them. And he never really steps off that. That's usually what he does. So it'll be tough for them.
That was a great example with Revis because, you look at Revis, that offseason, he gets a 5-year, $80 million contract to go back to the Jets. It fills out after a season or two, So J.C. Jackson, he's only 27 years old, I think, still in his prime. Kind of a different situation, but I mean, just the same story for the New England Patriots organization. And you look at other free agents this offseason. Devin McCourty, a free agent at 32 years old, looks like he may either walk or retire. It's gonna be tough to imagine him playing in a different jersey than the Patriots, especially being this old. Yeah. So I think he either retires or takes a massive pay cut to stay in New England. Because Belichick's not paying these guys. And especially with all the money they paid last offseason too, as I previously stated, there's not that much room to give 32-year-old Devin McCourty their 4-year $30 million contract, or J.C. Jackson a 4-year $60 million contract. And he knows he can replace these guys at will. And I think that's what he's going to do, which sucks to say. But, there's a lot of free agents on this team, too. You got Dante Hightower, another old guy. Trent Brown, left tackle, who was on the Patriots' last Super Bowl team, left the team, and then came back last season. He's a free agent also. So a lot of guys on both sides of the ball. Brandon Bolden, too, who's getting up there in age. James White, who missed the majority of last year, I believe. And, just it's going to be there's a lot of new faces on this 2022 Patriots team.
There really is. There really is. And kind of to think about some of those things, one of the major positions that the Patriots we've talked about since the beginning of the season, the position they really need to look at this offseason has to be linebackers. Because like you said, Dante Hightower, we don't know if he's going to stay with the team. And honestly, I wouldn't be upset if he left the team because of what I've seen after the season where he decided to opt out and came back this year. He just wasn't Dante Hightower. He wasn't the guy that you could really look at and be like, he stands out. He's making the plays. He's just not the same guy anymore. He's up there in age. I feel like it's time to really just, call it a day with him, unfortunately. And I feel like
too is like everyone's like he's so slow, he's so washed now, and he's still a good playmaker. He knows where the ball is going to be, but yeah, I mean they got to move on. They got to get faster linebackers. Cal Van Noy too.
Yeah,
this past season was very getting up there in age, kind of washed defensively. Couldn't defend the pass for crap. So definitely got to upgrade that position. And look at the Patriots draft position. I think they're picking like 22nd this year in the draft. I've seen some mocks getting them some linebackers or DBs.
Yeah.
But, I think the Patriots, with recent draft history too, with how Belichick's done the first and second round, which really hasn't panned out too well in the last 2 years. I think they really got to, try to keep some of the core guys on the team. That kind of adds more to the previous point making.
And I think, honestly, I've looked at some of the things we've seen in like news and such. I think one of the biggest linebackers to look at right now is Harold Landry out of the Tennessee Titans. So far in 2021, he finished with a career high of 75 tackles and 12 sacks. This is a type of production that would be really crucial to the Patriots in terms of bringing an edge rusher / linebacker like Harold Landry, a fast guy who can make a lot of tackles. Not only that, get sacks. And that's matching what Matt Judon did last season with around 12 and a half sacks. So, I mean, you have both of those guys coming in. That's 24 sacks right there, let alone from just two people.
A lot of sacks.
And Harold Landry, a lot of sacks.
Him and his pass rush this past season, they're definitely one of the reasons why the Titans were able to go from one of the worst third down Ds in the league last year to being one of the best overall defense in the entire league this year. They were phenomenal this season, helped pick up the number one seed. And I was looking at, list who the Pats can add in free agency to make their team better. And Harold Landry right at the top of that on one of these lists I was looking at. So look at the edge rush. You got Matt Judon. Who's really good, obviously. I think you said a dozen sacks this past year. But no one else really on the other edge or interiorly that are big name guys for the Patriots. And we're going to lose some big name defensive players like J.C. Jackson, Devin McCourty probably. Definitely want to make up for that with some playmakers up front.
Yeah, and I mean, another person that you could really look at on that defensive line that Belichick really didn't really start this year was Chase Winovich. We saw Chase Winovich come into this defense last year and really turn on a show, really. I believe he had at least close to 10 sacks last year. He had a nose for the ball, and he had a nose for the quarterback as well. He just was on his game. That's a guy who is in the organization still. This team could use for cheap without having to go out there. But obviously, I think
I think he was benched like the whole year or something.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, there's options there, but for some options in the secondary that you might need to look at, I'd take a look at Desmond King from the Green Bay Packers and as well as Javaris Ward from the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Javaris Ward he only has 4 interceptions in his career. However, you're talking about a slot corner who can play that position very well because you're looking at a guy now like Jonathan Jones. He's only under contract through next season. And then after that, it's like, well, what are we going to do here? So I feel like maybe bringing a guy like him in there to kind of fill in the hole for J.C. Jackson, or maybe the Patriots get themselves a brand new starter somehow in the free agency. It's just there's options out there. There's a small selection of talented players who are young that can really bring a lot to the team and the organization. And I feel like you take a look at some of these guys, and they'll definitely bring some pack to the punch. Really,
a good segue into who we want to see come to New England this offseason.
Yeah. Well, not even just that. We will have 3 special players that we do want to see come in. Will come to go to any team around the league. That'll be coming up in just a few minutes. But yeah, so Duffy, in terms of a player you want to see come to New England, let's hear it. I'm all ears.
All right. I'm going to stay on the topic of Green Bay for a sec. A young playmaker out of Green Bay, 26 years old. His name is Rasul Douglas from Green Bay. We saw him make the game-winning interception on TNF against the Arizona Cardinals this past season. Practice squad member for the Cardinals, about a year ago. He really came from nothing to something. I think he had 3 pick sixes this season.
Two. It's the most, but it's still the most in the league.
Yeah, really, it's crazy.
Yeah,
but he's a playmaker. 5 picks on the season. I think the Pats could get him cheap if they lose J.C. Jackson. I think Rasul Douglas is a guy they can get cheap and make a really good player out of. You look at the Packers defensive backs. They have multiple DBs and Eric Stokes, who's young, Kevin King, who's still young, who I think is a free agent also. So they're going to try to keep one of those guys. But the Patriots have a chance to get Rasul Douglas. I think it would make their defense a lot better. And if they had to keep J.C. Jackson too, which is unlikely, but if they do, this would be a fantastic 1-2 punch at DB for New England.
That's a pretty good case right there. I mean, taking a look at what he's done, obviously, he's defended 13 passes with 5 interceptions and 2 pick sixes. I feel like Rasul Douglas would fit in very well in terms of being a good suitor to replace J.C. Jackson and kind of take up the starting role as your starting corner. So, I mean, definitely a good look there. But for me, I'm going to take a look at the Patriots offense, because when you look at the Patriots offense from this season, it's a lot of deke and dunk, a lot of spreading the ball around, which is good. But the problem with the Patriots offense right now is there is really no true number one guy to look at and throw the ball to. And honestly,
we have a lot of receivers on our mind too.
There's a lot of receivers on our mind, but I think the most realistic one that I'm sure you and I can both agree on, hopefully, is going to have to be Allen Robinson. I feel like Allen Robinson, and sure, I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash for saying this, but Allen Robinson does not suck, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, let's be real here. This guy is a red zone threat, and I feel like he's just been underutilized in, where he is in Chicago. He stands at 6'2", 220. That's a big dude for a wide receiver. And I mean, this season, 38 catches, 410 yards, and 1 touchdown. But who do you have thrown to him? Russell
Fields.
Before
the best decision I made in fantasy was getting rid of A-Rob, but I also had to get rid of Jonathan Taylor, which sucked. But
before that, though,
Nick
for
Foles
2 years.
Nick Foles and Trubisky, and he's still at 1,000 yards, I think, back-to-back years.
2 years. So 2 years in a row.
Even Blake Bortles had a 14-touchdown season, second year in the league. I mean, this guy has been great with mediocre quarterbacks, and Mac Jones loved mediocre, and probably would be the best quarterback he's had. Think about it. Mac Jones probably the best quarterback A-Rob's ever had in his career. And, with the way that he played last season at his age now, probably about 30 years old, he's probably going to be cheap. And he's going to be realistic for the Patriots to snag this offseason. And that would be great, because he is a red zone threat. I think he had 12 touchdowns a couple of years ago or something like that. That's why he was so high on every fantasy board last season, only to suck with Justin Fields as his quarterback.
He only had 7 and 6 touchdowns the back-to-back years in Chicago, but he had 98 catches in 2019 and 102 the following year. So this is a guy.
If he has the right guy thrown to him, or even an average guy thrown to him, he's a productive receiver.
Yeah.
And Bears offense last year was in shambles since week 1. Probably a bottom 5 offense in the NFL. he just wasn't meant to have a good year. It just wasn't written on the stars for him. But if he comes to New England, I even with all the weapons they have, we probably said the same thing about Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, who weren't awesome this past season in terms of stats. But I think with Allen Robinson, he would be the fill-in number one receiver on day one, and he would get the majority of the targets. If we look at the Patriots last season, big plays, they were rare. The only big play I can really remember through the air was that 75-yard touchdown to Kendrick Bourne against the Cowboys off the top of my head. It was a lot of dink and dunk, a lot of low-scoring games on offense, games which the Patriots were able to win too a lot of the time. But I think with a guy like Allen Robinson coming off a bad year, he's hungry. I think it would be awesome if the Pats were able to get him.
Yeah. Like I said, big, tall, big-bodied guy. This is a guy who was definitely underutilized last season, but you're talking about an organization that was in a transition to a brand-new rookie quarterback, and I think for a guy like Allen Robinson, I think he's sick and tired of that and wants to be on a team that's much more competitive. But like you said, he wants to be realistic with what his value is, especially after last year. So I think there's no problem there. I'm sure the Pats will make a splash for him, and I hope they try and get, Mac Jones another weapon. You never know with Bill Belichick's philosophy which way he'll go. But that concludes our segment about the NFL, about the Patriots offseason moves. Now we're going to talk about 3 top free agents that we want to see go to particular teams. So I'll start us out here. First on my list has to be Davante Adams, without a doubt. Davante Adams, ever since he's come into the league, has just been nothing short of amazing to watch. He's just all over the place in terms of getting open for Rodgers, getting downfield to make the big play. He's there. He's got the hands and the playmaking ability. On his career so far, 8,121 receiving yards, capped off by 73 touchdowns. Last season, 18 touchdowns on 115 catches for 1,374 yards, a career high this year in receiving yards and receptions, 123 receptions for 1,553 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns.
Yeah.
This is a guy who continues to excel in his career in different ways, whether it's his touchdown numbers or his receiving numbers. And for me, the top target, without a doubt, has to be the Denver Broncos, because that's the true destination that everybody's pointing towards for Aaron Rodgers to go to. And Davante Adams has said from the get-go, wherever Rodgers goes, I go. And I think for him going to Denver, if Denver can't really afford salary cap-wise to sign him, I'm sure he'd sign a cheaper contract just to play with them, because Davante Adams...
I don't know about that. Maybe.
But Davante Adams knows what he's worth, without a doubt. And the team he's going to is in a great position, because you still have Cortland Sutton there. You've got Jerry Jeudy. You got Noah Fant, Melvin Gordon, and Javonte Williams there in the backfield. And then that defense led by Bradley Chubb and the crew just looks really good. And they've really shined in certain moments. We saw it when they nearly defeated the Kansas City Chiefs back in week 17, or 18, that is.
Correction.
This Denver Broncos team is in a good spot. And I feel like if they can get Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams belongs right here, because they will turn this team around and bring them a championship.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of if they get Aaron Rodgers. Because I think if they get Aaron Rodgers, Adams to Denver is inevitable. Well, Aaron Rodgers' decision is still looming, with possibilities still in the air. I think Adams could go to Vegas too. I think either way, Davante is going out west. He's from California.
Mm-hmm.
He's been playing in Green Bay the last 8 years of his career. I think he's going to go home, get some nice weather. I think Denver's a real possibility if Aaron Rodgers goes there. Like you said, they are a quarterback away from being a contender, being a top 5 team in the league. In my opinion, if they get Davante Adams, they'd be an absolute top 5 team in the league, and an incredibly hard division too in the AFC West. And I think that's the inevitable destination for Davante Adams is the AFC West. I think you look at Vegas too. I mean, this was a brand new stadium, good team, new coach, and a quarterback in which he played with in college, and Derek Carr. And those two were boys. They're tight. They were in the same draft class. Both went in round 2 in 2014. And if they play together, I mean, that would be electric. So I think that's a possibility if Rodgers does not go to Denver, which Rodgers could retire, man. If we're going to be honest, he might retire.
Yeah, that could
But
also be up in the air too.
I think if that's the case, I think Adams, I don't think he's going to go back. I don't think he would go to Nathaniel Hackett and Denver if Rodgers wasn't there. Because I think if he's going to leave Green Bay, he's going to leave Green Bay. He's going to leave everything out from Green Bay. So, I'm going to have to say he's going to the Vegas Raiders. And he's gonna bleed some black.
He could go there. There's also plenty of other options out there, such as the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens could use a number one guy like him. Not sure if they have the cap space, but that's certainly up in the air as well for them. But Duffy, let's hear your guy that you're going to go with here.
A guy that I just brought to the table, Mike Williams from the LA Chargers. Deep threat vertical receiver. I think any team that gets this guy is going to be a better squad, in terms of their playmaking ability, passes down the field, and they're explosive on explosiveness on offense.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a really young Chargers. Can you hear me? Was I glitching right there?
Yeah, you were kind of glitched the first second. You're good now. Yeah, you're good.
Well, I think he's going to stay with the Chargers. I switched my phone for the last stretch because my thing is mad glitchy. But I think he's going to stay with the Chargers. Justin Herbert, obviously a top probably 8 quarterback in the NFL right now. They have a lot of business to do there, and I think they're going to give him the money he wants because the Chargers they want to make fans and keep them because they have nothing in Los Angeles right now by any means. I think Mike Williams would be a huge way to keep him going.
Yeah. If you want to switch over your phone, you can do that now, and I'll just keep talking for a second while you make that switch.
All right, man.
All right, so while Duffy makes that switch, I'll continue that thought there. So on Mike Williams, really, you kind of look at what he's brought to the table for the most part. We've seen him do very well under Justin Herbert. Obviously he's done well. But he's had injuries that have come up every so often. However, the last few seasons have been nothing short of just greatness. I mean, you see 1,146 receiving yards this season for 9 touchdowns. And even though he was banged up the year before with Herbert, 756 receiving yards for 5 touchdowns. But then the year before that, 1,000 yards. He only had 2 on the year. But this is a guy who can get open, who can make these big plays and make the effort to get downfield there for Justin Herbert. But if the Chargers can't hold him down there, I'm sure there are plenty other destinations for him to go to. It's tough for me to say where right now, but Mike Williams, I'm sure if he were with a top-tier quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, or in this case, maybe Matt Stafford or Joe Burrow, he'd fit in fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't find it likely for him to go to those destinations, but we'll see. We'll see as the time comes.
Yeah, we'll see as the time comes. He's a big play threat. And wherever he goes with a good quarterback, I think he'll be good next season. I hope it's the Pats, because the Pats are probably this is probably, out of all the receivers, the most realistic for the Patriots to get. Maybe other than A-Rob, because A-Rob is probably going to be cheaper than Mike Williams heading into this offseason. But I think this is a possibility the Patriots could get this guy if they have the money to.
Yeah, I think he could potentially fit in here very well. It gives you, not only do you have multiple options for Mac Jones to throw out at wide receiver, but you're talking about different skill sets. And that alone is what really made Brady successful here in New England, was having different skill-setted receivers to throw to. And that's a philosophy Belichick has stuck to throughout the year. Because, Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar, they're both speed, but I would say Kendrick Bourne's more yard after catch receiver. Nelson Aguilar is more of a deep threat type of guy. And then Jacoby Myers is a possession catcher. You need 3. You need 3 guys to do well, but a guy who can do it all would be just as good too. But Mike Williams, he can be that guy who can do it all. So I would not doubt if he came here, he'd fit in very well. So
can be, yeah, for sure.
So my next free agent that I definitely would like to see go to a particular destination has to be Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin has played unbelievable in his tenure with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers through receiving throughout his career, 4,643 receiving yards and a total of 29 touchdowns. In 2019, he hit a career high of 121 catches for 1,333 yards and 9 touchdowns, only to top off his career high the following year with 2 years later with 127 receptions, or excuse me, 98 receptions. That's his career high from this year for 1,103 yards and 5 touchdowns. Chris Godwin injured at the end of this year with a torn ACL. It's definitely going to be a hard injury to recover from, so he probably won't come back until likely a week or two after week one, because an ACL tear is a very long time to come back.
You would know.
I would know, being one of those people who underwent season-ending knee surgery. Honestly, one of the top places I could probably see him go right now in terms of cap space, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns have projected $37 million in cap space, and that gives them a lot of money to spend right now. Chris Godwin could be the next experiment under Baker Mayfield to really go through. Odell didn't really work out, but we're talking about a whole different human being here. Chris Godwin is not a guy to get up in the spotlight, to do a song and dance every time, or even cry if he's not targeted. This is a guy who will get targets because he's reliable. He proved that there without Tom Brady. Jameis Winston was the guy who got him to the point where he was on the radar. So for this guy, I feel like he's a person that can fit into any system and be a top-tier target for your quarterback. And I think the Cleveland Browns are a perfect place for him to go with a team that needs another number one now that you don't have Odell Beckham anymore, and an offense that really is still struggling to figure out who they are.
Isn't Jarvis Landry a free agent too?
He potentially is, so I can check right now, actually. Let me see.
Well, I like what you said there with Chris Godwin. You know, Jameis Winston really put him on the map. People forget about that, including myself. He had 1,300 yards in 2019. And Jameis's last season, I think that's still his career high. You know, with him missing a lot of last year, not being as productive in 2020.
Yeah.
But, you know, Chris Godwin, I think that whatever team he goes to, like you were saying, he's going to be a difference maker. He's not a guy to, you know, get in the spotlight and say stuff to the media, make a big deal out of not getting targets because he's a playmaker. He just goes to work every day and does his job. We saw that, you know, in his early days with the Bucs. I remember when he first big play ever made. I don't know if you remember this, but it was week 17 against the Saints. It was like the 4-11 Bucs against the 11-4 Saints. And Chris Godwin caught the game-winning touchdown pass in the last game of the season. It was
I don't remember
2017.
That.
Yeah, I mean,
that's way too long for me to remember specific plays.
But he does a lot of good stuff, and I think that for some reason I have a feeling he's going to stay in Tampa Bay. The quarterback is a little bit skeptical right now whether it's going to be Blaine Gabbert, Kyle Trask, or someone they acquire or get in the draft. But I think with those factors looming, if it's any sort of type of favorable, I think Chris Godwin's going to stay in Tampa. You know, keep in mind this is the place he won a championship with, has his family here. You know, there's a lot of other factors besides football. When it comes to these guys picking where they want to stay and live their lives. Tampa Bay, great weather too, and it's been his whole NFL career. So I mean, if they are able to give him a good contract, and they have a lot of superstars in that team, so it depends what they really want to give him. Then we'll see. But I don't really know the type of guy Chris Godwin is. I don't know if he's a winning first type guy or a losing first type or a money first type guy, because he goes to New York Jets too with a lot of cap space. And you know they're awesome with slot receivers with Jamison Crowder and Elijah Moore. You know they have a really good potential for the passing game in the future with what they got going. That's something that came to mind, the New York Jets. But I think he's going to stay in Tampa Bay. You know, has a ring here, has his family here, and you know, has been here the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's still a lot of trending options for him to go to. You got other teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers that could use him, the Chicago Bears if they choose to decide to depart with Allen Robinson and really just decide to go all in for Chris Godwin as a result. The Jacksonville Jaguars are up there. And then, of course, you still got the New England Patriots. The Patriots are still looking for a number one guy. However, it's probably going to cost them a pretty penny if they want to get a talented guy such as Chris Godwin. But, Duffy, let's hear your guy. We've only got 3 players left to go over at this point.
Well, I kind of caked this, so I'm just going to do this right now. I kind of mess up the segments a little bit. It's the only other guy we haven't talked about in these
That's
picks.
basically who my next guy is, so we can just wrap up my combo too.
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about J.C. Jackson, the boy, J.C., Mr. INT, number 27. And like I was saying, Chet, I don't think he's coming back to Foxborough. He's definitely not. We've seen the same story time and time again with Belichick, with these DBs that are pricey, i.e. Revis, Talib, etc. Going to be McCourty soon, too. So, J.C. Jackson, and I was just reading this, and it really, really sparked my interest, him going on this team. I think we're going to see a Jackson duo in Chicago, Eddie and J.C. in the secondary. I think J.C. Jackson will be a Chicago Bear next season because when you look at that Bears defense, kept them in most games they won this season and the last few years. I mean, they were the reason they made 2 playoff berths in 3 years, basically, was their defense. They have Khalil Mack, obviously, Akeem Hicks, good defensive line, great with pressure, but they allowed 31 passing touchdowns last year, which was 7th last in the league. And, secondary has not looked the same the last couple seasons. So if J.C. Jackson goes to Chicago, a team with a lot of cap space, a lot of young players who don't have a lot of big contracts, that Bears secondary in an NFC North with probably no Aaron Rodgers, a terrible Lions team and a Vikings team that just chokes time and time again. If J.C. Jackson goes to Chicago next year, keep an eye out for them to be possibly 10-7, 11-6 team, depending on the development of Justin Fields and how he does with this new head coaching staff.
Yeah, that sounds like a very interesting case right there. I mean, hey, like you said, the Chicago Bears have got themselves a very star-studded defense that ever since has gotten Khalil Mack has been nothing short of a very big potential for a Super Bowl defense right there.
Yeah.
They have just grown and gotten better each year, but it's that damn offense that is really putting a wrench in these plans. So for me, I don't see J.C. Jackson going to Chicago. For me, I see his sights on something bigger, something closer to that championship. For me, I see him going to the defending AFC champions, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, they've got themselves quite a secondary already.
That would piss me off so bad.
They're one corner away from really pushing themselves into an elite category of a secondary that can cause blanket coverage. Because then you've got Awuzie, you've got Jackson, and then you've got Eli Apple in that slot there for you. You've got yourself.
If he's still on the team.
Yeah,
you still have Apple's even still on the team.
Yeah, you still got 3 core guys there, or even 2. A big splash here could really set up the Cincinnati Bengals in a better situation of possibly heading back to the AFC Championship and even better, the Super Bowl. So for me, looking at J.C. Jackson, I feel like this is a prime real estate example of, hey, I'm on a team right now that definitely has a chance to win, but I want to go to the team I know can win. So for me, Cincinnati Bengals.
There's also a matter of, like JC already has a ring. He won one 3 years ago, 53. So, I mean, at this point of his career, in his prime, you're thinking also, do I want the money or I just want to win another championship? Because you don't really know how much these guys prioritize winning a second championship with a new team, compared to the bag they might receive from a worse team. I think Cincy is a reasonable choice because most of their secondary is pretty cheap. Most of their players are pretty cheap, with the exception of Jesse Bates, their safety, who's one of the best in the league. And like you said, Chet, that would make their secondary, one of the top 5 in the league. And they're already in the top 10 probably, besides with the exception of Eli Apple, who was trash in the Super Bowl. And another thing, like you said, I mean, they're one cornerback away from being an elite category in the secondary. We saw it last week in the Super Bowl, letting up a 15-play drive in the fourth quarter, attacking Eli Apple all game, including the game-winning touchdown by virtue of Cooper Kupp. I mean, J.C. Jackson, if you go to Cincinnati, I mean, we can book them the AFC North champions again, I think. I mean, that's kind of an overstatement. I'm not going to lie. That's definitely an overstatement. But J.C. Jackson, I mean, that would be crazy for the league. It would probably piss me off a lot.
And it's also a great segue into the next segment too, which we'll be talking about division winners for next season. We'll give you that early preview in just a moment. But yeah, Duffy, like you said, I mean, this would put the Bengals secondary in an elite category in this league. So, I mean, for them, this is just a good. It would be a good signing. Some other possibilities, obviously, here though. The New York Jets. New York Jets could also do that, considering they have a lot of money. Hey, it's a division rival. Might as well be like FU to my team and go work for them. Or a bigger FU to go to the AFC champion losers this season, go to the Kansas City Chiefs and really boost their value. That would really piss me off. The Chiefs
salary cap is made up, man. How are they going to get Tooney, Tyreek, Kelsey,
Fugazi,
all these guys?
Fairy dust doesn't exist.
Bro, they're the Mickey Mouse team. Yep. They should have way more than one ring. Someone said my roommates the other day, bro. They should definitely have at least 2 rings, the Chiefs. Maybe 3. Maybe 3 if they just didn't sell, But talk about that some other day. They suck.
That's definitely some other day talk. To wrap up the show here, we're going to go into the final segment and talk about our early picks for division leaders. So we're going to start in the AFC, and we're going to start in the division we all know so very well as Patriots fans, the AFC East. And for me, Duffy, right out of the gate, I mean, I'm going to have to go with the Bills once again. I like the Patriots. Yeah. I like the talent they bring, but the Bills, they've just proven time and time again throughout the last 2 to 3 years that they are the better team in the AFC. It's their time now. So for the Patriots, they're going to make it close once again, but the Bills are going to come out on top once again as well to take the division.
I think the Bills, they're not going to repeat the same story next year of losing 6 games by, 1 possession. They're not going to repeat that same story. They're going to close up games here. This is, like we saw in the playoffs against KC, this is probably the second best team in the NFL heading into next season. We're at least a top 3 team with the Rams, Chiefs, Bengals, Bills. I think those are the 4 best teams entering next year. You got to give respect to the Super Bowl contenders, obviously, and the Bengals and Rams, but the Bills on paper, you could say top 2 team in the league, and I think the Patriots can make it close. Patriots, when you look back at it, they had a 2-game lead through 14 weeks over the Bills and couldn't close it out. They really should have won the division this past season, but now they're going to get that lucky that next year. The Pats will be in it for a lot of it. They got to get to a hot start like they did this past season. They want to win the division, but I think Buffalo, with the talent they got on paper, this is the best team in the AFC East. They're going to cruise to their 3rd straight division title.
Absolutely. A great thought there. Really good analysis there as well. And now looking at the AFC North, for me, Duffy, to start really in looking at the division here, we saw the Cincinnati Bengals climb up out of nowhere, really, and take the division. But you could see as they went into that postseason and went on this run all the way to the Super Bowl that they are a talented roster. However, that team that's sitting in dead last this year was in first place in the AFC.
I knew you were going to say it.
Baltimore Ravens are going to come back stronger than ever next year, healed from their injuries, and take the division away from the Cincinnati Bengals. I just think what we see out of Lamar Jackson and this team is just a little too much in terms of when they're at full strength. When they come back and they're ready to go, I'm sure we're going to see Lamar Jackson light up the scoreboard as he did before. This team has just gone through a lot of struggles this past season. A lot of people wrote them off, really, towards the end, which for next year, which is really tough to go off of, really. Do I see this team making it far? Probably not, because I see both of them in Cincinnati making the playoffs respectively. However, I think what we see out of Baltimore is a more well-rounded, a more experienced organization, and an organization that definitely has what it takes to take that first place and division title from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Honestly, I don't agree with you at all.
Okay.
Give me the Bengals again. They're gonna run it back next season. They're not gonna be a fluky team next year. They were kind of a fluky team this past season, being a 7-6 squad through 13 games, finishing 10-7. They got hot at the right time. So I'm not saying they were fluky themselves, but the record was kind of fluky, not indicative of how good they actually were. I think next year they're going to go 12-5, win the division. Ravens to keep it close. I think the Ravens are a really good team. I think they're going to make the playoffs next year. We got to remember this one thing: the Bengals steamrolled Baltimore twice this past season. And I think they're a better team entering next year. They're more confident, more experienced. And Joe Burrow now is the best quarterback in that division, in my opinion. Even though Lamar's an MVP, Joe Burrow's made the Super Bowl in his second year in his first full season in the NFL. So give me the Bengals to win the AFC North. I like it a lot, and I think they're going to make another run for the postseason.
Okay, some good disrespect. Well, not disrespect, some disagreement here, but obviously a good rebuttal there. Now to look at the
AFC South pickup. You know how much you're going to put up, baby?
Yeah. You're going to go with Houston?
I'm not picking Houston, no.
Oh, I was going to say, oh, shit. Like,
it's just symbolic of the AFC South.
Yeah. Duffy, you go ahead and start us out here. Who's your pick?
I think the Colts are the best team in the division on paper, their entire roster. But a lot of talks recently that Carson Wentz might be on his way out. They want to trade or release him. So with too much uncertainty at the position, I want to pick the Titans running back for the third straight year. And I know it's kind of a base pick, but at the end of the day, like this AFC South, it flip-flops every other year. And it can go any way. I mean, no one thought the Jags would win it the other year. No one thought Brian Hoyer was going to win it that year. No one thought the Titans were going to win it last year. So
or even three more years before that,
or
with Tannehill.
With Tannehill. I mean, or the Texans division that year, but
they were the last two seasons.
Yeah, but it just this division is probably the most unpredictable in the AFC. I'm gonna pick the Titans because they are the number one seed last year. Coming off a tough playoff loss, a lot of those teams as number one seed crumbled next year after losing that first playoff game. But I think the Titans, with Derrick Henry coming back, they should be in control of this division, and they might go 5-1 or 6-0 in division play this next season. Also depends if Deshaun Watson comes back, but I don't think he's not going to play for Houston. No chance. So give me the Titans.
Yeah. So once again, I'm going to hesitantly take the Tennessee Titans because we don't really know what the AFC South is going to look like by the end of this offseason. The Jacksonville Jaguars, sure, they've struggled this year, but I don't care what people say this year about Trevor Lawrence. This dude was the number one pick for a reason, and I'm sure he'll turn himself around. We'll see what the Jags do this offseason to improve. And with the Colts, yeah, they've got a great defense. That's what I really like about them. But the whole talk with Carson Wentz, we'll see what happens if they make a trade and get someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, or hey, maybe even get Aaron Rodgers. You never know. That's very, low possibility there, but there's still a lot of give and take. But as of right now, Titans to me still look like the clear-cut winners with Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, Julio Jones, and A.J. Brown there. I just think you've got too much talent in that defense. Still strong, and even if they lose Harold Landry this offseason, that front seven is still a very scary front seven to face. They were the number one seed for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure we'll continue to see that success going down the road for them. So, Duffy, we finally get to the last AFC division, the West, the AFC West. This one is going to be a hot mess.
Recovering Patrick and Jackson Mahomes. No, it won't be that hard of a mess. I mean, the correct answer is the Chiefs. It's the only right answer.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the division's too uncertain. You don't know if the Raiders are going to bring a lot of key guys back. Because the Raiders were a fluky team, probably the most fluky team in the playoffs besides the Eagles last year. 10-7 squad that was 6-7 won their last 4 games. Give me the Chiefs again for the 6th straight year.
Yeah.
Something like that, and
as
long as Mahomes is in this division, they should run it. I mean, they lost a lot of games early on last season. They started 3-4. It looked like it could be the year they didn't win the division, but this is going to be the year they win it again. And I know the Chargers are a good team, but they can't close out games. They're going to charge you all the way to a 6th seed and a first-round exit probably.
Yeah.
So give me the Chiefs. They're probably the number one seed again, and they're going to win this division with ease. But if Aaron Rodgers goes to Denver, we'll talk. Then we'll talk.
Yeah.
But right now, it's all KC.
Yeah. So obviously looking at what we have right now, not looking at the future and potential of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams reuniting in Denver, the Chargers and the Raiders potentially boosting. That's all potential. This is what we got right now. So obviously going with the Chiefs here once again. The Chiefs, they're the Chiefs. It's like saying they're the Patriots. They're too talented. They're well coached, well disciplined, have the best quarterback in the NFL at their back too. Give me them. I just don't see any way any other team can compete with them really in this division because, like you said, Las Vegas being a fluky playoff team, one and done. Chargers were probably in the same boat as them. Definitely a lot better of a team than the Raiders, in my opinion. However, the story speaks for itself. So give me the Chiefs. Give me the Chiefs here.
Yep. Easy pick.
Now shifting focus to the NFC. We're going to take a look at the NFC East here.
We got no NFC East picks. We're using the Lamicki pick because it is the most Lamicki division in football.
It really is. And looking at the way this division has gone each year, Dak Prescott gets hurt the year before in 2020. And the Dallas Cowboys were the clear-cut team that season to win the division. However, team fell off right after that, allowing the Washington football team to advance. So now this year, Dallas Cowboys run it through because the team stays healthy. To me, it's going to be Dallas. I mean, Philly is just, no. I just can't even touch Philadelphia right now. I can't. And then Washington and New York, forget about it. That's a train wreck right there. Dallas, too easy. It's just too easy of a pick. Yeah. You got Dak. You got Amari Cooper. You got, what's his face? I'm really drawing a blank on their wide receiver. Right.
Michael Gallup. No, he's going to leave probably.
No, other one. But he was just drafted.
CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb. Dalton Schultz is a free agent this year too, but you still got Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard running a great running back by committee in that backfield. And that defense, it's good, but it still needs a little bit more work and a little bit more tweaking before I can seriously come back here and say this is a Super Bowl contender. But as of right now, they are the NFC East champions.
And as of right now, they're the NFC East champions. They're going to be the NFC East champions. Philly has potential. They have good young players, young head coach. If they develop properly, they can definitely make a push for it. But I think Dallas, most experienced, best quarterback in the division without a doubt. And best running game, best defense, probably. Best playmakers. I mean, they should cruise through this thing if Dak can stay healthy.
That's very good. Very good. So now taking a look at the NFC North here, this is going to be
spicy.
This is a tough one because as of right now, sure, Aaron Rodgers is still technically a Packer, but I can tell you right now that ship has sailed. Say goodbye to him, Green Bay Packers fans.
You'll never see his Instagram post the other day.
What did he say?
He's posted this long thing thanking a bunch of people, his ex-fiance, Randall Cobb, David Bakhtiari, and shit. Looks like he's done in Green Bay. So I think we should just both agree if he's in Green Bay, they're our pick.
Yeah,
but let's just pretend he's not. Let's pretend he's not.
We have to pretend he's not because he will not be.
My division winner is going to be the Minnesota Vikings if he's not. I know they're probably the best team without him, and I kind of want to pick Detroit, low key, kinda. But they're not going to do it. But Minnesota Vikings, this is Kirk Cousins, I think, last year in his contract. It will be. He's going to have to ball out if he wants to stay and be elite in following years and get the payday. And the Vikings are just the best team on paper out of all these remaining three teams. Most consistent offense. The defense is pretty stinky, honestly. They've not been good the last few years. But, if Rodgers is out, they're the only team in the division that beat Green Bay last year with Rodgers playing. I know Detroit did Week 18, but it was a Mickey Mouse victory. So give me the Vikings if Rodgers leaves the North, and I think they do it. Probably with a 10-7, 11-6 record, I think they're going to be the 4 seed probably and get bounced in the first round because they're a fluky team.
Yeah.
Regardless, I think if Rodgers leaves the North, the whole division it might be the new NFC East for a year.
Yeah, it'll definitely be wide open. And I was on the fence with my pick here, teetering between the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. But in terms of the Chicago Bears, this is going to be an organization that is getting itself a brand new head coach, not only head coach, GM, and on top of that,
Bears' new head coach. I don't even remember who it is.
Let me see. Bears. Oh, not Bear, not a singular bear. Come on.
The Bears only win the division.
Matt Eberflus.
Eberflus from the Packers, I think. Only way the Bears win the division is if they sign J.C. Jackson.
Yeah.
So
for me, I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings because you look at it on paper, like you said, Kirk Cousins, he is in the hot seat this year. He did have a great season this past year, but once again, the Vikings fell short. Kirk Cousins is going to have to ball out, and he's got the playmakers to do it in Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson on that offense. That defense, it's okay, but they let up way too many points. Way too many points for my comfort. So for me, the Vikings are going to be the division winner. However, they're going to have to ball out to do so. And it's going to be something to keep an eye out is the NFC North this offseason. Because if Aaron Rodgers does leave or retires, the whole division is wide open. And there's going to be tons of different possibilities. It is butt naked as a result. So now for the NFC South, Tom Brady officially retiring. The Buccaneers now kind of in a very interesting spot. You still have a lot of the same players from the Super Bowl team still there, except Tom Brady. And for me, I mean, right now, it's tough to say because, I mean, we saw the Atlanta Falcons actually turn themselves around last season and play a lot more competitive in games that they probably should have been playing competitive in. The Carolina Panthers are still a wash. The New Orleans Saints were on the doorstep of making the playoffs. And it's just, it sucked. And Sean Payton, no longer the head coach there, but you still got a Super Bowl caliber defense there and a pretty decent offense. The future's unsure for Alvin Kamara, but for me right now, I have to go with the familiar setting again and go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just feel like this team still has all of that weighted talent there. And even without Chris Godwin being there, I'm sure whoever comes will be pretty successful in that situation with the weapons you have with Mike Evans and Scotty Miller still there and OJ Howard. You still got a solid team set up for you. So, I mean, right now, my familiarity is just going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, like the Bucs are the right choice. I'm not going to lie. They have the best roster on both sides of the ball, but this will be my hottest take maybe in the history of the show. Maybe not. Probably not the history of the show because I've said some dumb things on here. But I think the Atlanta Falcons.
I was honestly going to go with that.
For my boy Matt Heatu and company and the Migos and all of them. Atlanta, I mean, they got the best quarterback in the division now in Matt Ryan. Jameis Winston, I've heard that he might not come back to New Orleans next year. So that will be interesting to see how it plays out with him. I think if he does, it'll be between Atlanta and New Orleans. I don't think Carolina's a threat whatsoever. I think Atlanta, with Kyle Pitts developing, with those DBs developing, and A.J. Terrell, and if Calvin Ridley comes back, I mean, think about it. If Calvin Ridley was there the last half of the season, they probably could have, stuck in that in the hunt category. What did they finish? Like 7-10, 8-9,
7-10.
7-10. I mean, they could have finished 9-8 probably with Calvin Ridley playing 8 more games. And if Blaine Gabbert starts for the Bucs, I mean, that's over. I mean, give me the Falcons.
That's a wrap on that.
I want to see Matty Ice back in the playoffs. I think he has a lot to prove for one last postseason run. I mean, he hasn't been in the playoffs now. It's going to be 5 years in September since their 2017 campaign. And this is the best chance he has to do it. I mean, he had a really good chance last year to do it. See it in the wild card. Be over 500 at multiple points in the season. And, this year with the division, much more scarce. No Breeze, no Brady anymore. No Cam Newton, I guess you could say. This is it for Matt Ryan. I mean, this is the best chance he's going to get probably the rest of his career.
Yeah, that's a good pick right there. I mean, I almost went with them, but I'm still sticking with.
I know. I could tell by the way you started. I was like, "Is he going to steal my pick?" I was like, "Phew."
Hey, but for right now, I'm going with the Bucs. We'll see. We're definitely going to have a more definitive division call by, before week 1. I'd say we'll definitely have that ready to go. But that's months away. So now, hitting the final division, this has to be, without a doubt, the toughest division in the NFC West, and we'll probably see these teams leading in the standings for most of the part. The NFC West here, you've got the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. You got the Arizona Cardinals, who came hot out of the gate earlier this year. You got the San Francisco 49ers that snuck into the playoffs and put on a show. And then you got the Seattle Seahawks, who really struggled all season long with injuries and just inconsistency from Russell Wilson. So,
dude, I just realized my phone's at 1%. I'm just going to make this super quick. Before I hop back on my computer for the last segment, for the last minute or so. Shit, I'm just going to say it. Dude, I want to pick the Niners really bad. I do. I think they're really talented. They have the best run game, but the Rams, if they bring back the whole table, bring back the whole team, there's no doubt in my mind they're winning this division for 2 years in a row. There's no doubt in my mind. They're going to run it back.
Okay, yeah.
They're the most talented
Make
stack on paper teams in the history of the NFL.
that switch to your computer because you sound like a bot. I can hear you, but it sounds like crap. Okay, perfect. I didn't want to hear that anymore. Yeah, so I have to agree with that. I mean, kind of looking at the way everything's panned out. Kyler Murray doesn't even seem like he wants to give the Arizona Cardinals a thought in the world. He completely took down his Instagram. Well, not his Instagram, but he took down all his posts having to do anything with the Arizona Cardinals organization. And that to me really shows
Kyler Murray.
Yeah, this shows some disloyalty right there. In terms of the Niners, I could see Trey Lance doing a good job there, but I don't know because I haven't seen enough out of this kid to really give full confidence. He only played a few games and he only kind of jumped in every so often.
He wasn't ready last year either. He's the same year as me, bro. He's 21 years old. He wasn't ready to make the jump last year.
Seattle Seahawks, they look like they're probably going to part ways with Russell Wilson. And even if he stays, there's still so much work this team needs to do. You're talking about offensive line. You're talking about secondary. You're talking about pass rush. This team is just such a mess in terms of defense and just protecting your quarterback. That defense has been the worst in terms of allowing yards in the league, through the past 2 to 3 seasons.
We see it every year. Same story with them. I mean, other than last year when Russ was out for 6 weeks. I mean, as long as he's on the team, they're going to win games. They're going to be in it the whole season. So I'm not going to count them out. If he plays all 17 games, I think the Seahawks probably finish second in the division at worst.
Yeah.
Probably third at worst.
But based on what we know and what we have now, the Rams are set up to keep the same exact team, really, that they've had the last 2 years, including this year. And like you said, it is no doubt in my mind, there is not a shred of a doubt that this team will without a doubt be the division champions. They are just loaded with talent, loaded with just playmaking ability. They have it all in terms of a Super Bowl defense, a Super Bowl caliber quarterback now who is now a champion and potentially a Hall of Famer, and then a good steady run game and a solid offensive line.
Great coaching too.
Great coaching
and
out
a
of Sean
beautiful
McVay.
Stadium indoors with no fans. Only they're missing is with fans, dude. They have everything you want in a football team. So it's tough for me to even bet against them and not win the division next year. And I think of any team in recent memory, besides probably last year's Bucks or this year's Bucks, I think this is the team that could run it back, go back to back.
Definitely.
Actually, no, the Chiefs last year should have went back to back. I don't know what I'm talking about. I think a lot of these teams could have went back to back. The Patriots too. They could have won 3 in a row. They just beat Nick Foles. But it is what it is. I think the Rams could be the first to do it in a really long time.
Well, that does it for us here on Unapologetic with Chet and Duffy. Before we get out of here, just want to give a quick shout out to Team Icy Clan, who I hop on every single week on Warzone and cop some dubs with, baby. We got to cop another one pretty soon because I'm really getting sick of losing in these games. So a big shout out to the Icy Clan. You all know who you are. But once again,
I don't know who they are, but dude, you guys are sick at Warzone. I've heard a lot about you guys from Chet. Shout out my boys.
All right. Well, that does it here on Unapologetic with Chet and Duffy here on Fans Only Sports Network. Like we said, the following week and this week, we will continue our live coverage of the NFL offseason. Every single week, we'll give you updates on that, on big signings, because that's going to be coming soon, and especially with that franchise tag that's going to be coming up in the next couple weeks. So we'll keep an eye on that and have more NFL talk coming your way and potentially special episodes because the Rhode Island Division I hockey playoffs are upon us, and there are some good teams in there right now and some good matchups. Duffy and I got LaSalle on the bump facing Warwick tomorrow night, hopefully, snow dependent. So
Very
we'll see how things
excited.
panned out. So thank you all once again for tuning into Unapologetic with Chet and Duffy. This is Chet and Duffy signing out, and we will catch you all next week. And as always, go Pats.
Peace.